The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to show number hour 2, show number 527, to the talking about philosophies. No, not philosophies, prophecies. That's the one we talk about. Is hour 2 of this one talking about it. Also, Ukraine is going down, Nostrovia. That's what happened. We have taken over a station now. Russian Bear is ruling over Revolution Radio. You will hear all the truth now. We call like to Pravda. And Pravda tell you that we are now in control of the world too. Yes, good. Yeah.
Da.
Now, yes. Let's have some vodka, eh? Now,
yes, I'll have some vodka.
Since the station has been taken over, we have no choice but to conform.
Yes.
It's the new station policy, which is to drink a bottle of vodka every day. That's what it is, my friend.
Okay.
One bottle of vodka every day.
I'll certainly be able to keep up with that. They're rookie numbers.
Rookie numbers. Oh, mashed potato. Mashed potato is good too. You can have mashed potato. Oh, borscht. I like borscht. Borscht is good.
Oh.
Now we are talking. We concluded Ancient Aliens, everybody, which I personally thought was really cool topic. I like the topic, but I like many topics. But that was a really cool topic, and it's really. What we tried to do with that topic was to shine a light into a corner of conspiracy theory, which has been overexposed, I think, and we try to bring it back down. Not everything can be explained with Ancient Aliens. I think some things can be explained with Ancient Aliens, or certainly ancient high tech. Right? And if there are intelligent beings out there, or intelligent the way we would look at it, unless so we can actually communicate and interact, otherwise what's the point, right? And this is the whole point of Ancient Aliens, that they did interact with us, maybe even had a hand in our evolution. Then, isn't it exceedingly possible that they have technology that could find planets like Earth and interact with us? I think it is. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we are actually going to talk about a prophecy, and believe it or not, some of the prophecies we're going to discuss with you, not all today, unfortunately, because time won't be sufficient. There are about 40 pages of show notes here, I think. Thereabouts. We're going to talk about prophecy within the cultural context of its region. We're going to talk about that for a second. We're going to talk about the North American. I'm going to spend a lot of time on North American native prophecy, Hopis and others as well. We're going to talk about Mother Shipton at some point. And yes, we all know that there's some controversy around that. We'll talk about that. We are going to talk about Edgar Cayce, who is one of my favorite seers, prophets. Yes, he's a very interesting guy. He's called the Sleeping Prophet. Mm-hmm. Really interesting backstory as well, and he's got a lot to say. He was active for decades, and he never made any money of it. Believe it or not, that's for me. That's the mark of a true prophet. And then we're gonna look at the papal prophecies too. I don't know if you've heard about this, but Saint Malachi was he was known as a great prophet. He lived about 1,000 years ago, thereabouts, and he put together the list of the last 10 popes. The last 10 popes. And then we're also going to be in a close-off with the Hopi and the 9 signs of White Feathers prophecy, as well as an address to the 1986 Continental Indigenous Council, which was held in Tanana Valley Fairgrounds, Fairbanks, Alaska. There's a lot here, guys, and then clearly not all of it we'll be able to do today, Dave. But let's pound into it, and let's look at what prophecy is. Well, what is prophecy? Is a prediction or disclosure on information that is not known to the prophet by any ordinary means. So it's like a supernatural obtaining, gleaning of information. That's really what prophecy is, and usually attributed to some kind of divine inspiration, right? Usually, not always, but usually. The types of prophecy can be classified on the basis of inspiration, behavior, and office. Divinatory prophets include seers, oracle givers, soothsayers, and diviners, all of whom predict the future or tell the divine will in oracular statements by means of instruments, dreams, telepathy, clairvoyance, or visions received in the frenzied state of ecstasy. Predictions and foretellings, however, may also be the result of inspiration or of common sense by the intelligent observation of situations and events, albeit interpreted from a religious point of view, potentially. Now, what Dave and I did for you guys was talk about 2020 and what a terrible potential year it could be. We spoke about this 8 years ago, well before 2020 was upon us. Now, we're not prophets. We don't claim to be prophets. And what we did here was, in fact, this. It was the application of common sense by the intelligent observation of situation and events. That's what we did. We simply looked at what was and at what is at that time, and then drew our conclusions as to what could be going forward, having a couple of leaps of faith, some inspiration, some, I guess there was an epiphany along the way or two, and we came up with what we did come up with, and lo and behold, we were 100% correct. Not prophets, guys. Not prophets.
That's extrapolation.
Extrapolation. But Dave, why don't you tell us about Mesoamerica?
Divination was a central component of ancient Mesoamerican religious life. Many Aztec gods, including central creator gods, were described as diviners and were closely associated with sorcery. Now, what's that word?
Tezcatlipoca.
I'm glad you said it. Is the patron of sorcerers and practitioners of magic. His name means smoking mirror. Very close to Black Mirror. A reference to a device used for divinatory scrying. I don't know what scrying is.
It is in fact the foretelling of the future.
Oh. In the Mayan Popol Vuh, the creator gods, or Ex Machane, that'll do.
Very good.
And Ex Piacock perform divinatory hand casting during the creation of people. Wow, hand casting. The Aztec Codex Borbonicus shows the original human couple, Oxomoco and that very similar word, Zipaxonal, engaged in divining with kernels of maize. This primordial pair is associated with the ritual calendar, and the Aztecs considered them to be the first diviners. Becky, it's people and something from the earth, isn't it? Again,
always that, right?
They're so consistent in these stories. Every civilization that developed a pre-Columbian Mexico, from the Olmecs to the Aztecs, practiced divination in daily life, both public and private. Scrying through the use of reflective water surfaces, mirrors, or the casting of lots were amongst the most widespread forms of divinatory practice. Visions derived from hallucinogens were another important form of divination and are still widely used among contemporary diviners of Mexico. Among the more common hallucinogenic plants used in divination are morning glory, Jimson weed, and peyote.
Correct. Now, it's
what's
interesting
casting
to
of lots? I've got to have another question. What's casting of lots?
Oh, okay. So you know runes?
Yes.
Rune stones. Okay, it's like
right. Yep.
Okay, so you're just casting a special. I mean, they used to. I mean, funny enough, that's how we started getting our dice. The dice were actually finger bones, the original ones.
Yeah. So they have a medicine blanket. And they cast their different things out, and the order in which they've landed becomes a story.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And in fact, that's the way it's with the I Ching these days, right? It's you can use look, you can pretty much use anything that you feel a connection with. I mean, I used to do a lot of I used a lot of tarot. I used a lot of rune casting.
Mm-hmm.
It's in my family as well. It's like older than time, right? And I believe it is an extremely accurate method if you know what you're doing, of trying to glean even specific information about the future. No, I can't tell you a lot of numbers, otherwise we'd be having our own radio station with a huge antenna on top of it. No, but so, you can do a lot.
So my mother used to read tea leaves, but it wasn't the tea leaves that she was reading. It was the casting was the shape of them, of the tea leaves, and interpretation was used. But sometimes, so every time, she would have a conversation with the person while they're both enjoying the tea, and that laughing and joking and the stories that were coming through the tea drinking and the holding of the cup put energy into the cup, which was like a tunable energy that my mum would then be able to vibrate with, and then see that person's future, because everyone's vibrations are unique, like a fingerprint. And to be able to put the energy in, rather than just being skeptical and going, and just only touching the cup to drink, but looking down for that person to look into there and then see it as well, and then hand the cup across, that changed what you saw. It, without doing all of those functions, you weren't able to attune or attenuate with the person. Very extraordinary thing that we have here, and we just don't know.
No, you're right. We don't much know anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No, yes, it isn't. You can't really learn it. I mean, either you have an affinity with this kind of stuff and you pick it up, or you do not. It is really that simple. But
that's right.
What we have forgotten is just how all-pervasive this used to be, and in some cultures still is. So all throughout Asia, all throughout Africa, all throughout, well, even still today, all throughout the Americas, especially in native settings, Native American settings, it is very, very common to have these practices of divination, prophecy, some kind of foretelling mechanism, and
some reading mechanism as well in Europe.
It is easier, like you just said, it's easier to have a medium with, it could be a bowl of water, it could be a crystal ball, it could be a smoky mirror, it could be cards like tarot, it could be the I Ching, it could be bones, it could be whatever, right? But it is something through which information is transmitted to you. But like you said earlier, it's very, very important that you tune in to the person you're reading for.
That's right.
Because you will get different impressions, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience. And this is not really, you don't see pictures. It's hard to explain what happens. It is not that you're seeing something, it is that you're feeling something, but it's more than feeling. There's certainty when you say these words. They just come out.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at the picture and it's something emerges from your subconscious as a reader. You're not really reading yourself. You don't have that. What you're doing is you're tuning yourself to the other person's vibration through this medium of whatever it is, like I said, cards or whatever. And then that helps you help them. But it is not you that is doing the reading. It is done through you. Yes. But you're not the star of the show.
No, that's absolutely right. So for me, my little 5-second clips that I see of the person with ever progressing timeline, I don't get to see what happens in between. And these are usually key elements, only able to describe in the weakest way of the person's future. So whether it's my future or someone else's future, that's what I see. It's usually such a small clip that has really almost nothing to do with anything, but there's something unique in it that you need to advise the person about. It's an extraordinary thing. I know I was certainly gifted this family trait.
And look, that's what it is. It does run through families, and if you can trace your own tree back, you will find this kind of ability, in my opinion, quite prevalent throughout your entire family tree. That's my opinion. If you yourself feel drawn to it, chances are that people in your family have been drawn to it too.
So we're speaking about Mesoamerica, Mackie.
That's right.
What's next?
Let's look at we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at Japan, India, and Nepal. But just bear in mind that these practices, and the practices I'm referring to, it's a wide range of things, are all throughout Asia. Asia is rife with it. But in Japan, although Japan retains a history of traditional local methods of divination, such as Vodo, contemporary divination in Japan called Urunai, derives from outside sources. Contemporary methods of divination in Japan include both Western and Chinese astrology, geomancy or feng shui, tarot cards, I Ching, which is the book of changes, divination, and physiognomy, which is the methods of reading the body to identify traits. But the Japanese have their own method as well, which, like I said, is called On-Myodo. I'll just quickly take India and Nepal as well, and then I'd like you to do the 7 fire prophecies, because you will see why I took it. Thayam, or Thayam in Malayalam, a South Indian language, is the process by which a devotee invites a Hindu god or goddess to use his or her body as a medium or channel and answer other devotees' questions. The same is called Arulvaku or Arulvak in Tamil, another South Indian language. Adiparaskati Siddharpitam is famous for Arulvaku in Tamil Nadu. The people in and around Mangalore in Karnataka call the same Bhutakola, Pathri, or Darshan. In other parts of Karnataka, it is known by various names such as Prashnavali, Vagdana, Asai, Ashirvachana, and so on. In Nepal, it is known as Devta Kadami or Chakri. In English, the closest translation of these is oracle. The Dalai Lama, who lives in exile in northern India, still consults an oracle known as the Nichong Oracle, which is considered the official state oracle of the government of Tibet. The Dalai Lama has, according to centuries-old custom, consulted the Nichong Oracle during the New Year festivities of Losar. And of course, Africa has its own forms of divination, and it's widespread throughout the continent. Among many examples, it is one of the central tenets of Sera religion in Senegal. Only those who have been initiated as Saltigues, the Sera high priestess and priests, can divine the future. These are the hereditary rain priests whose role is both religious and medicinal. Like I said, normally this is a hereditary thing. Dave?
Yeah, that's right. So the 7 fires prophecy. Oh, and by the way, I completely recognize why you took that. Good grief. Some words that I've never seen that many syllables in, to be honest with you. All right. 7 fires prophecy, as in Anishinaabe. There's the Anishinaabe Begeg. Anishinaabe Begeg. I can't say it. Abjectival. Goodness.
Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe, thank you, yes. It makes sense now that you say it. Are a group of culturally related indigenous peoples present in the Great Lakes region of Canada and the United States. Prophecy that marks phases or epochs in the life of the people on Turtle Island, a Native American name for the North American continent. I see how that can be. The 7 fires of the prophecy represent the key spiritual teachings of North America and suggest that the different colors and traditions of the human beings can come together on the basis of respect. It contains information for the future lives of the Anishinaabe, that'll do, which are still in the process of being fulfilled. Hang on a minute. It said the 7 fires of the prophecy represent the key spiritual teachings. And the traditions of the human beings can come together on a basis of respect. Wow. Originally, the prophecy of the Ojibwa migration story were closed linked. However, The last half of the prophecy appears to apply to all peoples in contact with the Anishinaabe. Consequently, the growth of the Pan-Indian movement in the 1960s and the 1970s concept of the Seven Fires prophecy merged with other similar prophetical teaching found among indigenous peoples of North America, forming a unified environmental, political, and socio-economic voice towards Canada and the United States. The Seven Fires prophecy was originally taught amongst the practitioners of Midiwiwin. William Commander and Algonquin elder and former chief of the Kitigan Zibi Anishinaabe First Nation was Wampum, belt keeper for the Seven Fires prophecy, although he died in August 3, 2011.
Now, the first fire. In the time of the first fire, the Anishinaabe nation will rise up and follow the sacred shell of the Midwin Lodge. The Midwin Lodge will serve as a rallying point for the people, and its traditional ways will be the source of much strength. The sacred Magis will lead the way to the chosen ground of the Anishinaabe. You are to look for a turtle-shaped island that is linked to the purification of the earth. You will find such an island at the beginning and end of your journey. There will be 7 stopping places along the way. You will know the chosen ground has been reached when you come to a land where food grows on water. If you do not move, you will be destroyed. Now, this is the first fire prophecy. In heeding this prophecy, the Anishinaabe peoples, after receiving guarantees of the safety of their fathers, the Abenaki peoples, and their allied brothers, the Mi'kmaq, of having the Anishinaabe move inland, away from the Atlantic coast, mass migration of the Anishinaabe took place proceeding to the first stopping place, known as Muniang, known today as Montreal, Quebec. There the nation found a turtle-shaped island marked by migis, which are cowrie shells. The nation grew to a large number and spread up both the Ottawa River and the St. Lawrence River. The second of the turtle-shaped island, marked by migis shell, was at Niagara Falls.
The second fire prophecy. You will know the second fire because at this time the nation will be camped by a large body of water. In this time, the direction of the sacred shell will be lost. The Midwin will diminish in strength. A girl will be born to point the way back to the traditional ways. She will show the direction to the stepping stones to the future of the Anishinaabe people. The oral traditions of the members of the Council of Three Fires say that the realization of the second fire came about the third stopping place, located somewhere near what is now Detroit, Michigan. The Anishinaabe had divided between those who went up Ottawa River and those that went up the St. Lawrence River. After leaving the area about Niagara Falls, this group proceeded to the Round Lake, or Lake Sinclair as it's known, and found the third turtle-shaped island, marked by migis shells. They continued westward until arriving along the southern shores of Lake Michigan, but by this time the evidence of the migis shells were lost, and the southern Anishinaabe became lost, but physically in their journey as well as spiritually in their journey. The southern group of Anishinaabe disintegrated into what today are the Ojibwa, Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. That'll do. The northern group along the Ottawa River divided into the Algonquin, Nipissing, and the Mississaugas, but they maintained cohesion that was not maintained by the southern group. Eventually, the Potawatomi girl had a dream and pointed the southern group back towards and past the round lake. The southern group rejoined not a single Anishinaabe peoplehood, but rather as a unified alliance called Council of Three Fires, traveling east and north, and then west. The council crossed a series of small islands known as the Stepping Stones until they arrived onto Manitoulin Island, described as the fourth stopping place of the turtle-shaped island marked by Migis shells. There on the island, the council met up with the Mississaugas, who then spiritually fully realigned the formerly lost southern group with the northern group, who were never lost. The Ottawa facilitated the healing, and the island became synonymous as the Ottawa's Island in the Anishinaabe language. Meki.
Thank you. And again, these are prophecies that are unfolded over time, and the last ones we'll get to. In the third fire, the Anishinaabe will find the path to the chosen ground, the land in the west to which they must move their families. This will be the land where food grows up on the waters. From the cultural center on Manitoulin Island, the Ojibwe moved to the area about Sault Ste. Marie, where there was the next turtle-shaped island marked by a Migis shell. Wating, or the rapids of the St. Mary's River, became the fifth stopping place of the Ojibwe. From this spot, the Ojibwe and the rapids became synonymous with each other, with the Ojibwe known by the Dakota peoples as Io Hahatonwan, cascading waterfalls people, and later by the French as Salteurs, cascaders, and Salteur, cascades. From here, the Ojibwe moved west, dividing into two groups, each traveling along the shores of Lake Superior, searching for the land where food grows upon the waters.
The fourth fire. The fourth fire prophecy was delivered by a pair of prophets. The first prophet said, and I quote, "You will know the future of our people by the face the light-skinned race wears. If they come wearing the face of brotherhood, then there will come a time of wonderful change for generations to come. They will bring new knowledge and articles that can be joined with the knowledge of this country. In this way, two nations will join to make a mighty nation. This new nation will be joined by two more, so that four will form the mightiest nation of all. You will know the face of the brotherhood if the light-skinned race comes carrying no weapons. If they come bearing only their knowledge and a handshake." The other prophet said, "Beware if the light-skinned race comes wearing the face of death. You must be careful because the face of brotherhood and the face of death look very much alike. If they come carrying a weapon, beware. If they come in suffering, they could fool you. Their hearts may be filled with greed for the riches of the land. If they are indeed your brothers, let them prove it. Do not accept them in total trust. You shall know that the face they wear is one of death if the rivers run with poison and fish become unfit to eat. You shall know them by these many things." While at the fifth stopping place, the light-skinned people in big wooden boats, known as the French, arrived. Consequently, the French were called, please, Meki.
Wemiti-Gusi.
Wooden boat people. Though the French crown was interested in colonialism, as far as the Anishinaabe were concerned, the French appeared only interested in commerce and trade through mercantilism. Together with the French, the Anishinaabe formed trade alliances, which not only extended French colonial powers into the heart of North America, but strengthened the political and military might of the Anishinaabe. After the French came the Zaganash, offshore ones, of Great Britain, but out of the Zaganash came the Gitche Mokoman, big knives. The Virginians, i.e., Americans.
Now, what Dave has shared here with us is a very, very important insight into prophecy or scrying or divination, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is that it is not a clear path. There are two prophets here in the fourth fire. One says, okay, well, if the people you meet, the light-skinned people are like that, then it's going to be awesome. Like it's going to be wonderful. You're going to be very, it's going to be great. The other prophet said, well, yeah, if they're not like that though, right? If they wear the face of death rather than the face of brotherhood, then you're going to be in for a whole world of suffering. And in fact, unfortunately, what we saw here unfold was in fact that the light-skinned people were wearing the face of death, even though it might have appeared like the face of brotherhood. Because when I say we, the light-skinned people, we did poison the rivers and we did make the fish fit to eat, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So my grandmother always used to say, die Sterne neigen sich, aber sie zwingen nicht. Now, when you translate this loosely, what it means is, and she was very much into astrology, the stars never force. They will persuade, right? They might bend, but they will never force you to do anything. So any divination, any reading that you have, ultimately it is your action that brings it into being. Right? There's certain favorable things that might be coming your way, but there's certain other things. If you take a wrong step, for example, you might be going on to a whole different kind of future, right? Not the one that you necessarily foresaw in your divination, because ultimately there is such a thing as free will, and nothing is really predetermined, especially if we're looking at the world as it presents it to us in the quantum realm, right? It's a field of probabilities. We are every day we are wading through fields and fields of probabilities, and every decision we make has consequences, both for the past and the future and the present, right? So none of this ever forces you down a path. Okay, that is usually, very rarely it could happen, but most likely is that you will have many options to fulfill your destiny, right? In many different ways of getting there. Now, the fifth fire. This is the fifth prophecy. In the time of the fifth fire, there will come a time of great struggle that will grip the lives of all native people. At the waning of this fire, there will come among the people one who holds a promise of great joy and salvation. If the people accept this promise of a new way and abandon the old teachings, then the struggle of the fifth fire will be with the people for many generations. The promise that comes will prove to be a false promise. All those who accept this promise will cause the new destruction of the people. Now, I think we are in the time of the fifth fire.
Mm-hmm.
Dave?
Yeah, I completely agree. The sixth fire. In the time of the sixth fire, it will be evident that the promise of the fifth fire came in a false way. Those deceived by this promise will take their children away from the teaching of the elders. We're seeing this right now, aren't we, though?
Yes.
Grandsons and granddaughters will turn against the elders. In this way, the elders will lose their reason for living. They will lose their purpose in life. At this time, a new sickness will come among the people. The balance of many will be disturbed. The cup of life will almost become the cup of grief. Good grief, Meki.
I know.
At this time, a new sickness will come among the people.
I know. Right?
Wow.
That's where we are. That's where it is. Now the seventh. The seventh prophet that came to the people long ago was said to be different from the other prophets. This prophet was described as young and had a strange light in his eyes. And he said the following. In the time of the seventh fire, new people will emerge. They will retrace their steps to find what was left by the trail. Their steps will take them to the elders who they will ask to guide them on their journey. But many of the elders will have fallen asleep. They will awaken to this new time with nothing to offer. Some of the elders will be silent because no one will ask anything of them. The new people will have to be careful in how they approach the elders. The task of the new people will not be easy. If the new people will remain strong in their quest, the water drum of the Midiwin Lodge will again sound its voice. There will be a rebirth of the Anishinaabe nation and a rekindling of old flames. The sacred fire will again be lit. It is this time that the light-skinned race will be given a choice between two roads. One road will be green and lush and very inviting. The other road will be black and charred, and walking it will cut their feet. In the prophecy, the people decide to take neither road, but instead to turn back, to remember and reclaim the wisdom of those who came before them. If they choose the right road, then the seventh fire will light the eighth and final fire, an eternal fire of peace, love, brotherhood, and sisterhood. If the light-skinned race makes the wrong choice of the roads, then the destruction which they brought with them in coming to this country will come back at them and cause much suffering and death to all the earth's people. So this is good. Like, the reason we're doing prophecy right now, everybody, couldn't be more appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
We are at a crossroads, and if you don't see that, then you've been under a rock. Okay, and we've been at a crossroads for the last 50 years, maybe longer. And I just hope, I really hope that enough people are going to make enough of the right choices to avert what we all know now. We all know now that the catastrophe is upon us. I mean, you have to be blind, and you have to be blind in both legs, right? You have to see that. Okay. It is a really, it's a dire time. And don't forget, these are ancient prophecies. These are not prophecies they read yesterday, right?
No, that's right. Ago. Yeah, that's right.
Maybe thousands of years ago. Now they might seem, uncannily appropriate.
I know, it's crazy how close they are to right now.
Right, and in fact, there's one here of Mother Shipton's, and we'll get into the controversy as well there for a second. But you have to understand that this was written hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. Okay, or orally transmitted, or whatever. Right? This is always a mistake people make. They don't put it into context. Of course, if I wrote this today, then nobody goes, so what? Oh, what a great insight making! Oh, wonderful! Look at you making all these wonderful insights. No. No. This is not me or Dave or whoever, sitting down and writing down something that should wake you up. Hey, wake up! Stop doing what you're doing. Let's do the right thing. No. It's not that. This was said a long time ago. But look, in that spirit, though, Dave, why don't you take us through some of Mother Shipton, and then I will add something to the word of caution as well.
Yeah, perfect. So, while the Elizabethan. This is as written by my father, says the author, James Henry Thompson, in the 1950s, source unknown. While the Elizabethan age produced many great names in history, it produced a remarkable woman who was regarded as a witch. She was Mother Shipton, who was born in the reign of Henry VIII and died in 1559 during the reign of Elizabeth I. She was born in Yorkshire, July 1448. She was an English seer and prophetess who made some remarkable and accurate prophecies. The advent of motor cars, planes, wireless, submarines, and the discovery of gold in Australia was unknown.
There's a word of caution. The lines in question in the notorious prophecy about the end of the world were fabricated about 20 years ago by Mr. Charles Hindley. The editor of Notes and Queries says in the issue of the journal dated April 26, 1873. So, the fabrication happened in 1853. Okay, so that's 170 years ago. So just to be clear here, right? So some of the Mother Shipton prophecies were fabricated by Mr. Charles Hindley. He self-confessed it. In 1853, and I'm quoting here, Mr. Charles Hindley of Brighton, in a letter to us, which is the purveyors of the magazine here, has made a clean breast of having fabricated the prophecy quoted at page 450 of our last volume, with some 10 others included in this reprint of a chapbook version published in 1862. And we're going to read out to you the one that he was meant to fabricate it. Okay, if you want to take it, that's go ahead. But I want you to realize, though, even though he might have fabricated it, and it wasn't, written by Mother Shipton in 1600 something or other, but rather in 1850.
It's still 1800.
1850. So why don't you tell us what he fabricated?
Is that what this one is that I'm about to read? Okay, the following is a fair summary of her most extraordinary powers of divination. Carriages without horses will go, and accidents will fill the world with woe. Around the world's thoughts will fly in the twinkling of an eye. The world upside down will be, and gold shall be found at the root of a tree. Through the hills man shall ride, and no horse be at her side. Underwater men shall walk, sleep, talk as seen, in white, in black, in green. Iron in water shall float, as easily as a wooden boat. Gold shall be found and shown in a land that is not known. Fire and water shall wonders do, and England shall admit a foe. Woman shall get a strange old craze to dress like men in breeches wear, and cut off their beautiful locks of hair, and ride astride with a brazen brow, as witches do on broomsticks now. Love shall die and marriage cease. Is it Anne babies?
Yep.
Anne babies and sucklings so decrease that wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs.
1850.
Good grief.
Now, I don't care that he pretended to be Mother Shipton or not. It doesn't really bother me either way. But in 1850, we did not have the automobile yet.
No.
We did have telegraph. So, the telegraph was around, the beginning of it anyway. But the most astounding thing here, though, is how he portrays women. I mean, women weren't allowed to vote in 1850.
No, that's right.
Right, and certainly never dressed like men, and it's just astounding. And then he also makes a prediction about love and marriage. I mean, we do have a birth problem now in the first world nations. We have a declining birth rate, and not only that, but rather than having babies, right, and be consumed with motherhood, it is pets that these women that don't have kids, I guess, spend their energies on.
But in fact, that cats and dogs were outside pets.
Yeah. They were, right?
They were. Then they weren't inside pets. They didn't live on your bed.
Yeah.
Like they do now.
And that wives shall fondle cats and dogs. Now, fondle is, of course, an intimate embrace, if you will. Like, I mean,
that's right.
You really love your cat and dog, so so to have that insight. And if you look at America specifically, there's more money spent on cat food than helping the poor.
That's right.
Right. Now, this gentleman, what's his name? Here we go, Charles Hindley. He had an uncanny ability to foresee the future here. Uncanny. Okay. Now we're going to give you the long version of the poem above. Always bearing in mind this was written in 1850. If he indeed, pretended to be Mother Shipton. Not yesterday, not in the 20th century, 170 years ago. Now, I'll take half of it, and Dave can take the other half because it's a long one. This one, it's really, 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 really long. In fact, you know what? I don't think we'll be able to finish it. So let's just take two others that are attributed to Mother Shipton.
Sure.
Right now, these are not said to be forgeries, but who knows? We don't know. I mean, Mother Shipton's existence is also called the question. I'll take the first one.
Sure. These are poems found on the outer wrapping of scrolls.
Yeah, correct. So, I know I go, I know I'm free. I know that this will come to be. Secreted this, for this will be found by later dynasty. A dairy maid, a bony lass, shall kick the stone as she does pass, and 5 generations she shall breed before one male child does one learn to read. This is then held year by year, till an iron monster trembling fear eats parchment, word, and quill and ink, and mankind is given time to think. And only when this comes to be will mankind read this prophecy, but one man's sweets, another's bane, so I shall not have burned in vain.
Oh, good grief.
Well, this next one, though, is
I know, right? This is the poem. This poem was found in a separate jar. The signs will be there for all to read when man shall do most heinous deed. Man will ruin kinder lives by taking them as to their wives. And murder foul and brutal deed when man will only think of greed, and man shall walk as if asleep. He does not look, he many not peep, and iron men the tale shall do, an iron cart and carriage too. The kings shall false promise make, and take just for taking's sake, and nations plan horrific war, the like as never seen before, and taxis rise and lively down, and nations wear perpetual frown. Yet greater sign there be to see as man nears latter century. 3 sleeping mountains gather, breathe, and spew out mud and ice and death, and earthquakes swallow town and town in lands as yet to me unknown. And Christian one fights Christian two, and nations sigh yet nothing do. And yellow men create great power again from mighty bear with whom they've lain. My goodness me. These mighty tyrants will fail to do, they fail to split the world in two, but from their axe a danger bred, an ague, leaving many, an egg, meaning leaving many dead. And physics finds no remedy, for this is worse than leprosy. Oh, many signs for all to see the truth of this true prophecy.
So, irrespective of Mother Shipton wrote this in 1650 or Mr. Hindley wrote it in 1850.
Right?
So just a couple of things here. So, this is a couple, right? This is uncanny. The kings shall false promise make and talk just for talking's sake. Also, this one here. And yellow men great power gain from mighty bear with whom they've lain. In Hindley's time, 1850, China was a backward, and Great Britain was in the middle of consuming it, if you will.
That's right.
Into its empire. That's what led to the Boxer Rebellion and the Opium Wars and a whole bunch of stuff, right? So China was not seen as a great power, right? It was certainly a powerful nation in its own right where it was, but it was something that the British were working very hard to subdue, right?
And the mighty bear?
So the mighty bear, the bear is always a reference to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yellow men, great power gain from mighty bear with whom they've lain. Now, it's very clear that this is referring to right now, because China and Russia were never great allies.
No.
People think, oh, both, China and Russia, both communist. That's not the case. China and Russia had very different communist doctrines, and they were never, ever on the same page, right? They just weren't. So China and Russia never banded together to face the West together. It just didn't happen.
Mm.
And now, though, what we see, though, is that China is, in fact, gaining great power by, I guess, helping Russia in many ways. And Russia is asking for their help, right? So what could possibly be better than, gaining a powerful hold over Russia by giving him loans, extending credit, giving him military aid, etc., etc. Not only that, they also hold a lot of power and sway with the Americans because they're the single largest investors in American treasury bills in the world. But this and yellow men, great power gain from mighty bear with whom they've lain. There's no way that someone in 1850, let alone 1650, could have ever foreseen that
No.
Russia and China
That's right.
would get together in any which way and assist each other. And then, mighty tyrants, blah, blah, blah. But from their acts, a danger bred an ache, leaving many dead. Now, what's an ache? An ache is malaria or another illness involving fever and shivering.
Yep.
That's an ache.
That's it.
That's what we have right now.
Yeah.
And physics find no remedy, for this is worse than leprosy.
Yep.
Now, leprosy is easily, actually, to be honest with you, leprosy you can heal.
Wow.
It's not a great disease. I mean, leprosy is a terrible disease, but it's ultimately attacking the nerves, and such. But it can be cured. Leprosy, that is. There's a treatment regime. There's no treatment regime for SARS-CoV-2.
Not
Right?
that they'll allow.
Well, that's it, right? Now, I mean, I look at this and I'm thinking, holy moly! Wow, this is astounding. This is, I mean,
it is now.
Again,
it's crazy.
Don't care if don't care if it was forged as Mother Shipton in 1850 or written by Mother Shipton in 1650. I don't really care either way, right? It still stands as a pretty powerful piece of prophecy. But I mean, but we're not given a way out here. We're not told how we can, undo any of the damage. But it is certainly astounding that there was this insight. And Christian 1 fight Christian 2. I mean that's Christians have. Well, there really aren't Christians per se. It's like different various sects. I mean, you look at the history of Europe. Throughout, ever since I guess the Reformation, right, and then the splitting of the Church of England as well, Martin Luther, they've been at each other's throats. Even in Mother Shipton's time, so she was saying that is not as astounding. But it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, in the olden days there were religious wars, right? But nowadays, Christians fight Christians, makes no difference. Because the Ukrainians are Orthodox.
Yeah, but back then it wasn't.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. That's wow.
I know. Yeah, look, next time we'll start with the longer version of the poem that Dave shared with you. But again, I don't care if it was written by Mother Shipton in 1650 or by Mr. Hindley in 1800.
Still crazy. Accurate.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's this one line here though, which is really astounding.
Which one's that?
It's okay. Here we go. And before the race is built anew, that's toward the end, a silver serpent comes to view, and speared men of like unknown to mingle with the earth now grown, cold from its heat. And these men can enlighten the minds of future men, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with the second sight, a natural thing, so they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew.
That's Alien Contact, if I've ever heard it.
Absolutely. It has been interpreted like this ever since. But again, I don't care if it was forged in 1850 or written by her in 1650. Don't care. Because this is, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes before that, obviously. Again, we don't have time to go.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that next week, Mackie.
I know, this is just... wow. Yeah.
Oh, I'm taken aback by it. This is completely new to me.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah, it's a bit more esoteric, but see, the reason I think we're discussing it here as well is because in order for divination to work, the universe as we understand it is actually not as we understand it. It's broken. Or if it isn't broken, it is working on completely different principles to what we're accustomed to. Right? In my opinion, it's as leaky as a sieve. Future, past, present, they all leak into each other. And if you have the right mindset, like, when you look at that picture that, you have to relax your eyes.
Yes.
The magic pictures. It's like that with your mind. as well. You have to be able to relax your mind. That's why it's good to have a medium. Like if you've got something where you can lose your focus on, like a crystal ball or a smoky mirror or body of water, anything like that, right? Anything that helps you both unfocus your eyes and unfocus your mind. You have a much better chance of being successful at divination.
Wow.
That's where we are, my friend. That's
Well, we're certainly here right now.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've got my bare feet and I'm on the ground and I'm finding my center again. And just remember gravity. Very important. And wow, that comes around so quick. Meki, this has been episode 527, the end of the 2 hours. Stay tuned for Jer Bear with his fantastic show After Hours. Dial in, call in, listen in. It's fantastic. So we'll catch you next week. And we've got 2 shows, Plato's Cave midweek. So we'll see you for all of them. Take care.